Eastern Washington University students donating their time and resources to build a 3D arm.
I was just shocked that I would ever get one.
Now they want to learn from that fifth grader to help benefit more kids in our community.
A lunar trifecta in the sky. A super blue blood moon eclipse is happening overnight. A lot of clouds in the sky. I've got your chances on actually getting a chance to see it.
A new report wants lawmakers to lower the legal blood alcohol limit, which means some people could be legally impaired after just one drink. Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Jane McCarthy.
And I'm Mark Hanrahan. The report says lowering the legal blood alcohol limit from 0.08 to 0.05 will help reduce the number of drunk driving crashes and deaths.
KREM 2's Lindsay Nadrich takes a deeper look at this recommendation. Lindsay?
Nationwide, 29 people die every day in alcohol-impaired crashes. That's one death every 49 minutes. Those stats are part of why a new report recommends lowering the legal limit from 0.08 to 0.05.
The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine says their statistics make the change a no-brainer. Lives are saved when the legal alcohol limit is dropped to 0.05. In several European countries, fatal crashes dropped by 8 to 12%. In parts of Australia, 8 to 18%. And a study at the University of Chicago estimated lowering the BAC limit here would reduce fatal alcohol-related crashes by 11%. If this were to happen in Washington state, what would this mean for drivers who have something to drink and then get behind the wheel? For a man who weighs 160 pounds, he can usually have 3 drinks in an hour and be right under the current limit of 0.08. At 0.05, he could only have 2. For a woman who weighs 160, she can typically have 2 drinks in an hour to be under 0.08. At 0.05, she could only have 1. If you want to check your limit, we've posted a link to this chart on krem.com. But keep in mind, that's just an estimate. There are so many other factors that impact impairment. You should never drink and drive.
Getting into trying to estimate, oh, well, I'm this size person and I've had this many drinks, and therefore I should be able to safely drive the car. Once you're going down that calculus, you're on a slippery slope.
Ultimately, the goal is to have 0 alcohol-related crashes. Researchers say this is a good place to start.
The progress on reducing alcohol-impaired driving has stopped in the U.S., and the number of deaths has actually started creeping back upward.
One state has already made the change. Last year, Utah lowered the limit to 0.05.
Utah is the first state to make the BAC level that low. It goes into effect at the end of this year. Will it happen here? An Idaho Transportation Department employee told me everyone is likely waiting to see what happens first in Utah. In studio, I'm Lindsay Nadrich, KREM 2 News.
Lindsay, thank you. And we posted a poll asking whether you agree with this report. We got more than 100 votes. 41% of voters said yes, it should be lowered. 59% said it should stay at 0.08. In other news, the Department of Energy is replacing the managers of a critical radioactive cleanup project at Hanford Nuclear Reservation.
The announcement comes after radioactive contamination was found in multiple workers' personal cars. The Department of Energy wants other employee vehicles retested, including a rental car. The DOE says replacing the project manager is intended to rebuild confidence with workers and with the public.
A teenager accused of trying to cover up the death of a Pullman High School senior pleaded guilty to 2 felonies. As part of a plea agreement, a judge could sentence Matthew Maketa to 5 years of probation for destroying evidence and grand theft. Court documents show Maketa knowingly moved a body, a rifle, and ammunition after 18-year-old Timothy Reeves was shot and killed. This happened while they were playing Russian roulette in rural Latah County in July. Well, after the shooting, court documents show both suspects, Maketa and Keegan Tennant, went on the run. Police later took them into custody near the Canadian border. Tennant, the teen accused of actually shooting Reeves, has also pleaded guilty in the case. His charge, involuntary manslaughter.
The Federal Communications Commission says the Hawaii state employee who mistakenly sent an alert warning of a ballistic missile thought an actual attack was happening. The FCC says the employee with the state's emergency management agency mistook a drill for a real threat. He responded by sending the alert without a sign-off from a supervisor. The alert went to phones, TV, and radio stations all across Hawaii. It took 38 minutes for officials to send a second alert retracting the warning. That employee was fired.
Well, it was a busy day for Spokane City crews. Strong winds brought down a number of trees on Spokane South Hill. Here in the Spokane area, we saw a gust up to 53 miles per hour. Places like Schweitzer Ski area, they saw winds more than 90 miles per hour overnight. Well, the wind won't be quite as strong, but the warm weather hanging around today for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty nice, wasn't it? Tom Sherry in the Weather Center tracking all the details. Tom?
Yeah, so far we've got a current temperature of 39 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. The wind not blowing quite as strong as, my gosh, the 50-mile-an-hour winds that we saw last night. Wind is out of the west-southwest at 17, but it is going to get colder tonight. And you can see we've got lots of unsettled, cooler air pushing into the northwest. Most of the precipitation, though, is going to be snow showers in the mountains. We're not going to see anything much anyway down here in the valleys. You can see a few isolated snow showers that we are tracking. So again, a cold one tonight, down to about 28 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. And then we'll see high on Wednesday of only 38, again under partly cloudy conditions. What about the weekend? Glad you asked. Possible rain on Saturday and Sunday, but very mild. We'll see a daytime high of 46 on Saturday, 47 on Sunday.
Tom, the big question a lot of folks want to know, what are the clouds doing tonight? Because as you called it, the lunar trifecta is happening.
It is the lunar trifecta. We've got the super moon, the blood moon, the total lunar eclipse. It's going to be great. Can we see it? Well, take a look at Future Tracker. It's going to be iffy. You can see out in central Washington, you've got a better chance. You see the cloud cover right over the Spokane area, but then just to the west of us, not so much. This is at 3 in the morning. This is when the eclipse barely starts. You'll barely notice it, but it will be happening as the moon begins to pass in front of, or as the Earth begins to pass in front of the moon. At 5:30, it will be a full lunar eclipse, and once again, it's hit and miss. The computer model says we've got some cloud cover across areas of the Spokane area. If you live in Coeur d'Alene and areas farther east, I think you're just going to have cloudy skies. If you really want to see it, I think you need to head out to central Washington. And then you can see at 6:30 when it's over, it looks like that, again, we've got those same kind of cloud situations going on where it's kind of hit and miss. Just kind of an aside, regardless if we see it or not, but the full lunar eclipse is over at just after 7 a.m. We wouldn't get to see that anyway because the moon will have already dropped below the horizon. So when this all goes on, the moon will be fairly low in the sky.
Okay, but Moses Lake looks like a good place to see it.
I like that. Ritzville, let's head out there.
Right.
Kind of early.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it is a long-standing superstition. For centuries, full moons have been associated with strange behavior, including sleepwalking, among other things.
Well, yeah, we have 3 different things going on in the sky overnight. KREM 2's Rose Belts looked into whether there is any proof behind the superstition.
You may be thinking or even worried this could have people acting a little different. I mean, lunatic does come from the Latin word luna or moon, but don't worry. I paged through quite a few scientific journal articles, including General Hospital, Psychiatry, and Current Biology. Contrary to belief, and despite patterns we all, including healthcare professionals, may witness, there is no connection between lunar or moon phases and psychological problems. In fact, these unfounded beliefs are more likely to be self-fulfilling prophecies. While there is some published evidence linking moon phases and sleep, the effect is small. According to Dr. Hans von Dagen, professor and director of the Sleep Performance Research Center at the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine at Washington State University, the effect of a full moon could be overwhelmed by other effects on people's sleep, including if you went to bed early enough to meet your brain's sleep needs, or whether you had a stressful day that keeps you worrying at night. Researchers also argue the brightness of a full moon is minimal in modern society. We are more likely to lay wide awake at night because of our phones and computers that are lying next to our bed. No matter what you hear, even though a supermoon's extra pull of gravity creates higher than usual tides, it will not be strong enough to have any relevant effect on the body's water content. Humans are not as big as the planet, so we tend to not notice these effects. In fact, some researchers also claim the gravitational pull of a full moon is actually similar to a new moon that you can't see. And according to a peer-reviewed obstetrics and gynecology journal, the moon's effect on a woman's menstrual cycle is still debatable. All that being said, the phenomenon of this trifecta moon could be a special occasion that is well worth getting out of bed in the middle of the night and risking a small amount of sleep deprivation this one time. Rose Belts for KREM 2 News.
So no blaming your strange behavior on the moon.
Yeah, it's not me, it's the moon.
Right. That one won't work.
All right. Well, also happening tonight, President Donald Trump's first State of the Union address. You can catch it right here on KREM 2 starting at 6 o'clock tonight. That means we won't have a 6 o'clock newscast, but we will bring you full coverage of his speech, including a fact check on KREM 2 News at 10 and 11.
All right, taking a look at Capitol in Washington, D.C. We are now just about 50 minutes away from the State of the Union address. Each year, the Constitution requires the president to go before both branches of Congress.
But the modern State of the Union has changed. Brandy Smith takes a deeper look at the history behind the speech.
He shall, from time to time, give to the Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient.
Shout out to the West Wing for the quote, but what's time to time actually mean? Tradition is once a year, but it's not set in stone. In fact, until 1934, the speech was typically in December, not January. Thanks, FDR.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
The speech's name? Well, it's in the Constitution, but it didn't catch on as the name used by presidents at first. They typically called it their annual message. So who popularized the phrase State of the Union? Yup, FDR again.
History is made by men and women of vision and courage.
The Gipper made history with his speeches to Congress. He broke with tradition and decided it didn't seem right to hold a State of the Union just days after his inauguration. The last 5 presidents agreed, so even though President Trump addressed Congress this time last year, this will be his first State of the Union. Some presidents go short, some go long.
My fellow Americans.
Bill Clinton holds the title for lengthiest speech at 88 minutes. George Washington, the shortest, used just 1,089 words. We don't know how long he actually spoke. There's no TV or radio in 1790, but it was believed to be just 10 minutes.
That was Brandy Smith reporting. President Trump will likely talk longer than 10 minutes. The average speech runs about 50 minutes long.
Interesting.